What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm actually going to be talking about who I think should be selected with picks 11 to 14 in the 2023 NBA draft. Of course, I have already done who I think should go with the first pick all the way to the 10th pick in a previous video. So if you guys would like to go and check that out, I do highly recommend you guys go and do that. It will be linked in the description down below. Of course, as I've said in previous videos, at the time of making this video, we actually don't know what the official 2023 NBA draft lottery is going to be looking like. So I will actually just be, kind of selecting these players based off the standings and whatnot. For example, the Detroit Pistons are currently last in the NBA, therefore I had them, selecting first overall, and again, the Spurs, who were third last, had the third pick. Pretty self-explanatory, but that's pretty much, everything kind of there. Again, in today's video, I will be starting off with pick number 11, and at the time of making this video with pick 11, we actually have the Toronto Raptors, who have definitely had a really interesting season. I feel like this could honestly be one of those seasons that's kind of put as a best perfect example of, going a step backwards to take 2 steps forward. And at this pick, I think they've actually got a player that's really, really nice and has fallen directly into their lap in this mock draft that I've done, and that's actually going to be Cason Wallace. Now, I think Cason Wallace is actually a really, really special player who honestly just fits exactly what the Toronto Raptors seem to look for when they're looking for, a player to not only draft, but a player to actually fit into their system. That's kind of already given away what he's good at, which is, of course, defense. But this comparison is just absolutely awesome and something that I can definitely see really working for the Toronto Raptors. And he's actually being compared to Drew Holiday, who we know is one of the best defenders in the NBA. Some believe is the best defender in the NBA. And I think he will potentially finish top 3 nearly in defensive player of the year so far in 2023. It's an absolutely awesome pick for the Toronto Raptors. It's being said that he's a productive scorer that can create his own shot. He's very capable of potentially becoming a very consistent 3-point threat, as well as being able to stretch the floor from all parts of the court and being really nice as a catch and shoot type of player. He's also a really nice ball handler, but he definitely does need to work on his left-hand dribble, it's being said. And it is also kind of said that he can potentially switch from the 1 and the 2 with quite ease and comfort as well. He's a 6'3" point guard who, again, really does have that Drew Holiday type of mold where he's a pretty decent scorer, pretty decent playmaker, but most of all, this guy is an absolute threat when it does come to being a good defender. And I just think this absolutely fits into exactly what the Toronto Raptors are looking for, because if we actually take a look at their team right now, we're not entirely too sure if Fred VanVleet will be staying. I've heard words that Toronto wouldn't even mind if he does leave, sorry. I'm not too sure what everyone's opinions are going to be on that, but he doesn't exactly fit the system that they're trying to do in Toronto. I also believe that the Toronto Raptors' long-term plan is to potentially have Scotty Barnes run as a bit of a point forward. We know he could definitely do that really, really well in college, and they have experimented with it a couple of times since he has been in the NBA. But I have a feeling if they go and get a dude like Cason Wallace, who they say to him, hey, you're a pretty decent playmaker, you're a pretty decent scorer, but you don't have to really rely on anything with that on our team. All you gotta do is rely on as being the best defender you possibly can, and then all the other things will come. I think that will be an absolute perfect fit for the Toronto Raptors. Like, just imagine being able to have Cason Wallace and, Scotty Barnes potentially share the ball and run the point guard duties. I think it'd be a really awesome thing. And if you bring him in, let's just say VanVleet maybe goes, or something like this type of situation happens, they could legitimately have a starting 5 that looks like Wallace at the 1, potentially Barnes at the 2, Anunoby at the 3, Siakam at the 4, and Pirtle at the 5. Jeez, that would be probably the best defensive starting 5 in the league. And if you're wondering, well, where's the scoring gonna come from? Because you'd be relying on Pascal Siakam quite a bit. We know that Anunoby has really been wanting to be a big shot creator on the team for quite a bit, and I think he'd be able to step into that. Not just that, you've got a couple of really, really awesome scorers off the bench to really help this team. I definitely don't think it would be a bad idea at all to maybe go for a guy like Cason Wallace at that point guard position. And again, Gary Trent off the bench, add that scoring. Yeah, it'd definitely be a really scary thing to go against that starting 5. Not only defensively, but I think there's a lot of potential offensively as well. And that's honestly just the ultimate scary threat about this. So having Cason Wallace, drop to them with that 11th overall pick is kind of just a match made in heaven for them. Now, I'm going to be moving on to the 12th overall pick right now, where I do, of course, have the Utah Jazz. And the Utah Jazz are a really interesting team because they have one of my all-time favorite players in the NBA right now in Lauri Markkanen, who I think was a very big catalyst to actually helping the Cleveland Cavaliers be kind of what they are right now. And he has grown into being a really awesome all-star. You know, they've got a bunch of other really nice young players here and there as well, who I'm sure are probably going to be all-stars very soon. But in saying this, they don't exactly have, I think, the greatest guard depth anymore, and I definitely think they're going to be wanting to try and improve on that through this draft. So it's, I think, a pretty good thing for them, because it's not only a best player situation, but it happens that the best players that are going right now happen to fill a positional need that I genuinely think the Utah Jazz have. And that is, of course, finding a new guard. So with this 12th overall pick, I will have them selecting Keyonte George, who I think is probably going to be one of the steals potentially from this draft. There's a lot of, I think reports saying that Keyonte George could 100% go like pick 8, pick 9, but again, because some of the teams that I've had picking earlier don't really need a shooting guard like him, he's managed to fall to the pick number 12, and that's what Utah have right now. And I think he's a very special player who could definitely help them out quite a bit. For example, on the offensive end, he's really being compared to a Bradley Beal, just a really excellent shot creator who could become an all-star doing that one day. Of course, as well, potentially on the defensive end, a three-point aspect, even being Eric Gordon, who has almost gone quite underrated for most of his career. I feel like Eric Gordon has had a lot of injuries in his career, but I remember a time where I think it was the 2019 playoffs or so, where there was a stat that actually said that the Houston Rockets' second best player on the court, other than James Harden, was not Chris Paul, it wasn't Clint Capella, it wasn't PJ Tucker, it was actually Eric Gordon, because his defensive efficiency and three-point shooting, all of the above, was just so amazing in those playoffs. So to be able to be compared to a guy like Eric Gordon and Bradley Beal is just really good for Keyonte George. If we're going to move on from his comparisons now, Keyonte George is a 6'4" shooting guard who has a really nice knacked ability on the scoring and, kind of being able to shoot really well, whether it's from the catch and shoot or the shot creation. He's also a really, really fast guy who just seems to be able to outrun those defenders, and he's just kind of being labeled as a natural born bucket is what a lot of websites are calling this guy. Now, of course, there are some downsides to him. It's being said that he doesn't really have elite blow-by speed or really an elite first step for that much, and he can sometimes not be very crafty with his ball handling. But again, even though that is a bit of a concern in the NBA, especially considering this is the type of competition where you kind of have to be clever with how you handle the ball so you can score, I think as time will go, he can definitely, be able to, I think, learn that and kind of judge how the NBA game is played, and therefore, quickly after that, I think his ball movement and whatnot will probably improve. It's also being said that he has a really nice mid-range jumper, nice three-point shot, and he's really good at getting to the rim and scoring through contact. So this is just a really awesome type of scorer who could maybe one day, I think, develop and be a solid player like Eric Gordon on the defensive type of end. I just think his true shooting will be something that could be really kind of looked at as a spectacle in the NBA, because if he gets his shot creation going and he can do that somewhat efficiently, it would be a really nice, thing to maybe see. Again, in saying that, his defense might not be near that Eric Gordon type of level thus far. It is being said that he's a very pesky on-ball defender who gives a good effort and takes the task personally. He might not be big on steals and blocks, but he can definitely hold his own against the 1 and 2. So realistically, this just kind of fits into what Utah need, because even though I don't think they have a future point guard and shooting guard just yet, I mean, there's a lot of question marks still on players like Colin Sexton. I think he's probably going to be more of a six-man down the line. I do think bringing in a player like Keontae George to maybe be your future starting shooting guard and putting him alongside Markkanen and Kessler, it definitely makes a lot of sense to me. And I think some people might honestly see this as one of the steals of my mock draft thus far. I think this is a really good move for the Utah Jazz, and not only is he best available, but he also fits a positional need that they kind of need to tick off and, get that kind of down, because this team could be seriously good if they, got some guards back. I mean, when they had Mike Conley and whatnot, they were playing some really good basketball, but they've dropped off a little bit, and I think that might be solely due to the fact that their guard depth is a little bit lacking. But yeah, Keontae George kind of answers some of their problems, and he could be a very nice long-term prospect. Now, with the 13th overall pick, I have OKC, and there was a lot of players to, take with this team. Like, they've got a really, really nice starting five, I think, going into the future. But with this pick, I decided to take a player who I think was more of a positional need rather than necessarily best available, but that's actually being Kyle Filipowski, who I think would make a whole lot of sense for this Oklahoma City Thunder team, as they do kind of lack, I think, if anything, on that center position, and even the power forward, really. I mean, Jalen Williams has played there for the majority of the season. Is he a natural born power forward? I'm not exactly too sure. I think a lot of people had him more of playing the small forward type of position, but Kyle Filipowski can definitely not only play center, but can play power forward, which is pretty extraordinary for a dude who's 7 foot. I've seen some people compare this guy to a bit of a Karl Anthony Towns. Now, I'm not too sure how much I like that. I guess they play similar, but I think in terms of, dominating in the paint and, I think the body build and whatnot isn't quite like Karl Anthony Towns was in his prime just yet. There is still a big chance that this guy could potentially develop maybe into being something very special in the NBA. It's being said that he's a pretty slick ball handler, especially for his height. He's one of those 7-footers that also has a really nice passing ability and can space the floor extremely well. It's also said that he has a bit of point forward type of skills, and that's what I kind of mean. I don't think Karl Anthony Towns has necessarily shown that in his career. I think Cat's more of a guy who dominates in the paint while also having an extremely good 3-point jumper. Again, Cat might not be able to as much now, but back in Cat's prime, like a couple years ago, I think people forget how dominant he could be in the paint. Yeah, this Kyle Filipowski guy definitely seems to be a bit better with the ball and being able to be a little bit of a point forward even at times, which, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if that could maybe translate to the NBA. He does have the point forward skills. Will he be able to be a point forward? Probably not in the NBA, but again, the fact this dude is 7 foot and can shoot threes really consistently and has a really nice pass on him and can space the floor and all that type of stuff is definitely something that I think people are not looking at, enough. Like, we've seen the more Nikola Jokic type of guys who just have the ability to spread the floor and pass the ball extremely well, but just being able to shoot threes. I think that's what I would liken Kyle Filipowski more to being more of like a Nikola Jokic, and how he kind of plays his game with a bit of point forward skills, but can shoot the three ball. Again, Jokic has never necessarily been known as like I think a point forward. He's obviously a center, but he definitely has like those traits of being an extremely good passer. I mean, this guy is one of the best, if not the best passer, quite possibly in the NBA. And you don't see people calling him a point forward, obviously, because the way he plays his basketball, he's been kind of, turned into a center on the NBA level. And I think that's maybe what will happen to Kyle Filipowski. I don't think he's going to really come into the NBA and be this power forward who, can potentially have the ball and potentially pass consistently all the time. I think there'll be traits of him having really good passes and, spreading the floor, maybe similar to an Alfred Şengün, who gets better and better over time as well. But I definitely feel like he's going to play that center position, I think, more than the power forward maybe in the NBA. But just kind of the theory that I have that OKC could legitimately have him and Chet starting in that same lineup would be, I think, really, really cool. Chet's a bit different in my eyes, where I'm not too sure. I think he kind of fits in that weird mold that Filipowski does as well, where he almost is like a power forward / center as well. And I think that having both of them on the court would be a really, really interesting thing, as they could both not only switch on to the power forward, but also switch on to the center position. Both can also hit the three ball and have a really nice passing ability. So it would be a really awesome thing. Of course, Chet will be the more natural, better shot creator. But yeah, having those five, with Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe Lou Dort or Jalen Williams at the small forward. I think Filipowski and Holmgren swapping as the power forward / center duo. Literally everyone on that team can pass the ball. Everyone can shoot pretty much. I think everyone can help on the defensive side of the ball as well. I just think it would actually be a really nice player to maybe see come into this team. I'm not exactly too sure. Again, websites have him listed as power forward, and a lot of scouting reports do as well. But yeah, I think going into the NBA, he might play minutes at power forward, but I see this dude maybe playing some center minutes quite a fair bit as well. But I'm not too sure. He could definitely turn into how Larry Markkinen is a 6'11", 7-foot guy, but can literally guard small forward. If Filipowski can do that, then geez, the NBA better watch out. But I think his first couple years, he'll be a bit of a power forward / center, I think, for the time being. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how that kind of does unfold down the line as well. Now, with the 14th overall pick, this was a little bit of a harder pick to kind of do, because at the time making this video, the Dallas Mavericks have fallen all the way to pick 14. How long they'll be there for, I'm not exactly too sure. They haven't really done that well in recent games, which definitely does suck to see, because I actually kind of like Luka and Kyrie playing together. I'm not going to lie. Even though I don't really think it will probably work long term, I don't know why. It's just something inside makes me want it to work. I don't really know, and I'm going to be basing this video off the assumption that Kyrie Irving will be re-signing with Dallas, which I'm not exactly too sure if he will. So I probably won't be drafting a guard here. So with this kind of 14th overall pick, I went more of the forward type of direction, where I actually am taking a 6'7" / 6'8" small forward in Jet Howard from Michigan, who I actually think would be a really nice player to put alongside Luka and Kyrie. There's only three really, I think, established players on this Dallas team who I think will 100% be starting next season. And that is, of course, Kyrie, Luka, and Josh Green. I'm a very big Josh Green fan. I think they should 100% have him as the future starting small forward. And he gets better and better every year. He plays really nice defense and can shoot the ball and doesn't need the ball to be effective. So I think he'd be really good. And I think Jet Howard kind of fits in the same mold as a guy you can maybe play as a, not necessarily small ball power forward, because he's 6'8", but a guy who not necessarily as good defensively yet, but can maybe translate in the NBA. And I think you can definitely put him at that power forward position maybe. Doesn't have to start there. He can come off the bench and just play forward minutes. But I actually think Jet Howard makes a lot of sense for this team, considering he is a really, really good catch and shoot player. It's being said that he actually excels in catch and shoot situations, which is just really awesome for this Dallas Mavericks team, and it's exactly what they need. Last thing they need is another guy to take the ball off Kyrie or Luka Doncic. So bringing in a dude like Jet Howard to come in who can just, sit in the corner and whatnot and catch and shoot would be a really awesome decision for them. It's also being said that he's just a really nice, talented scorer who not only can play small forward and power forward, but can also go to that shooting guard position as a bit of a more taller player. His main trait is he's just really, really good at being an off-ball guard as well. When he does need to be, or an off-ball forward, when he does need to, potentially shot create, he has known that he can do that quite well too. And I definitely think, if you're gonna put a guy with Luka and Kyrie, maybe if one of them gets injured and you're looking for a dude to shot create here and there, maybe you're looking at a guy like Jet Howard to stand up and do that. But for the time being, if we're gonna say that Kyrie and Luka are fully healthy, which touch wood for them, that's hopefully gonna be the case, then having a dude like Jet Howard who can, switch from the 2 to the 4, not only on defense, but can come in and just not be relied on to shot create, but relied on to catch and shoot, I think just works perfectly for what Kyrie and Luka are trying to do, in the NBA. Again, Josh Green is the perfect example of the mold that they're trying to create right there, and I think he works really well for Dallas. But again, Jet Howard, he's a similar type of guy who can be a really, really efficient catch and shoot type of guy who can maybe switch from 2 to 4, while also potentially having the potential down the road at being a really nice shot creator. I think that just makes sense for where Dallas are sitting and the situation that they are in to, of course, go for it. And worst case scenario, let's just say Kyrie does leave in free agency, and you go back to Luka at the 1, then even having a prospect of Luka at the 1, Josh Green at the 2, and Jet Howard at the 3 is also a scary thing. Like, imagine Luka just passing it off to these really, really efficient catch and shoot type of guys who don't need the ball to, be able to score efficiently all the time. You do that, and then of course Luka can go back to defend the 1. You got these 2 really capable wings to just go out and guard the small forward, go out and guard the shooting guard. That would just be a really good situation as well, even if Kyrie, does decide to leave. But again, I think he could stay. Will he? I'm not exactly too sure, but even if he does stay, or even if he goes, I still think this is the pick to make. He is a player who has a lot of potential down the line as well to just be a really solid player. And if he kind of converts to the NBA level, which I know some people are saying he definitely can, then yeah, you're already on another step forward to, I think, creating a championship team with Kyrie and Luka. Putting dudes around them like Jet Howard, like Josh Green, is the steps that you need to take to win a championship. Again, you do that, you bring in maybe some defenders off the bench and whatnot, some actual defensive center, and you've probably got a way, way, way better team. So again, there's a couple things they need to do, which I think they will. They've usually got a pretty decent management, and I think they might fix a lot of the stuff and correct them in free agency in the draft. But yeah, I think drafting a guy like Jet Howard with the 14th overall pick just makes a whole lot of sense for their franchise and their future. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA content and NBA news. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys think the Dallas Mavericks should, of course, trade for Jet Howard? A couple other things here and there. What are you guys' thoughts and opinions on all the picks I've made so far? Definitely don't forget to let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Go and check out all my other 2023 NBA mock draft videos. I'll hopefully have a playlist link down below where you guys can, of course, go and, check all that stuff out. Links down below. Of course, subscribe to my gaming channel, my Hero/vlogging channel, and my podcast. All of them will be linked down below. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.